Hey everybody, welcome to worshiptutorials.com. Something that we just feel like we needed to do is show personal pedal boards. So today, as you see, this is a different looking board than the Worship Tutorials house board that we got going on. This is what I use week in and week out, and this is, well, I say week in and week out, let's be honest. It changes all the time. But it's what I use for the most part, week in and week out. This is my 72 Thinline reissue that I love to use. I've had this for 5 years, and I love it. It's just now getting to the point where I feel like I can play it now, getting nice and worn in. But if you look here, there are some pedals here that you may or may not recognize. There are also some that are pretty big, and I'm fully aware. And you know, after a lot of research and a lot of trial and error, I have come to the conclusion this is what I want. I've tried so many different compressors, the Dynacomp, the Pulp and Peel, the Deep Six, and that's not a whole lot, but that's still 3. And I got this Cali, and I love it. And so that's kind of a staple that stays on. That is something that if I were to start talking about, we'd be here for a while. So this also, not only does it just give a nice compressed sound. When I say compressed, I don't like squishy, I don't like giving it like a floor necessary in the ceiling. I don't like putting it like that. What I like using this for is to kind of round out my sound. I use it to the point where it grabs on pretty much right away, and it releases a little longer. Reason that being is because I like sustain, but I also don't need that country sound, So here's without it. It's the bridge pickup. Let's put it in the middle. And here's with it. So it kind of takes my sound, rounds it out, and actually adds some color to it. And this is the Origin Effects. This is just a standard Cali. There's like 5 different versions. And so I found this used. I love it. Stays on. I really don't touch anything with it. There's really no point to for me. I like it. And then running after that is I actually have my 2 dirt pedals here. The JHS Superbolt is one of my newer favorites. I like using it for heavier stuff, and it works great for that. Normally, I like to put my dirt pedals, I like to push the volume on that, and then add the drive a little bit. But what that ends up doing is turning your amp up more. And with this pedal, it's so unique that I wanted to get more from the pedal. So I turned more of the drive up, and the volume's up there, sure. But with the more drive, it's just saturating the amp with more of the Superbolt sound as opposed to my amp sound. Now, different case here with the Klon. This is a Klon KTR. You know, for a while, if you don't know about them, spend some time going down that rabbit hole on the internet, because they'll sell these. Honestly, have come out again recently, so they're not going to be as hard to find, and they're not going to be as expensive. But the gold Klon and the silver Klon and any other iterations, the Centaur, all that, they can get super pricey. I grabbed this one probably about a year ago, and it's the only dirt pedal that I really will always use. As you notice, these knobs here, this one over here on the left is gain. It is virtually off. I have it just a hair up just to give it a little extra. The middle knob is actually a treble cut in a way, so at noon it's not really touching anything. Backing it off, it's cutting treble, and added to it going towards, you know, clockwise, it's going to start adding treble. I like to leave it just cut a little bit off. My bridge pickup is, you know, of course, gets a little harsh, so when I use that, but also I leave it, I like to, there's a buffer on it, and I leave that on. I actually recommend, he likes to have some fun. It says almost always better when it's on, and off it says almost always worse, or something to that extent. So I have the volume up. Here's just a, and then more of a, and I like to back off my volume on my guitar a little bit to keep it. And what that's good for is if I'm doing a lot of transitions, or even if it's not a transition, it's just a quicker song, I don't want to step down. I can keep it on, bring the volume back a little bit, cleans it up. Dig in, it gets louder, and open it up, switch to the bridge. So I very much like that. Sometimes I put a boost pedal on here, and I like to use that for solos, but the Klon is so great in itself. Why would I not use that? So if I need a solo boost, I'll stack the two of these. But more often than not, I find that, you know, either I'm using my clean tone to begin with and the Klon is my boost, because I like to keep my amp on the edge of breakup anyways. So when I'm playing, there's still some dirt there, and I'm not afraid to use that. But that's how I use dirt. I've tried my Micro POG before and after dirt before. It's been before for the longest time, so now it's after. I don't know. Personally, I'd like to say I'm very good at picking out the differences of things, but honestly, I like it afterwards. I think it sounds great. I tend to use the same setting. I feel, even though it says, it looks to you guys through the picture that it looks like the dry is cranked, and it looks like the sub and the sub octave and the octave up are almost the same. I feel like that octave up is a little harder to hear. So that one's up a little bit more, but I like to use it just to, I like to bring it out, and actually probably a little more than that. One of my favorite uses for it is like in Mighty Warrior. Just like that. I like to give a little bit of extra. It works really great for clean lead lines too. And actually, I'll kind of show you that as we keep hopping. I love the Micro POG. Honestly, I think it, you know, wherever you want it, before or after your dirt, that's the best spot. Either one of those two is better. But this is probably my fourth Micro POG, and I've had about 3, maybe 4 POG 2s. I go back and forth. I like having the different presets on the POG 2 because sometimes I want more of a lower octave and less of the higher octave. And so having a preset is great. But for whatever reason, these Micro POGs just sound so much cleaner. They sound much more pure and true to what your signal sounds, and so that's why I prefer it. They're great sounds you can get out of the POG 2. It's got presets. It's got a couple extra. It's got a lower octave and a higher octave than what it comes with the Micro POG. But this does exactly what I need to do with it. So yes, my fourth one, and it's very likely that I'll probably want a POG 2 again, and then it's very likely I'll want a Micro POG back again. Who knows? So speaking of owning a pedal multiple times, an Eventide H9 is next. This is the third one I've had. The first one I got, and I loved it. I thought it did cool stuff, but I didn't really use it as much as I really thought I would. So I ended up selling it and got some other stuff and worked some other angles. Then there was another part where my pedal board was a PT Jr, and this was my Verb and everything funky, and had some more like crisp digital delays. But I got this back now because I use it for mods. And right now I have 6 settings on it. This is actually the core. The core comes loaded with some pitch factor settings, but oddly enough, a pitch factor is capable of calling a detune effect, and that detune effect actually sounds a lot like chorus, and that seems to be coming back with a vengeance. So I keep that sound in there just in case I end up feeling my inner 80s coming. So it's not very subtle by any means, but you get the idea. I also have a nice octave effect in here. Yes, I have the POG, but I'm trying to wean myself off the POG, to be honest. I'm trying to, not because it's bad, I'm just trying to shorten things up a little bit. So this, it's got 3 octaves, the dry, the sub, and the octave up. So it does the same thing. I just don't think it holds as well. Doesn't sound bad, I just prefer the Micro POG more. And then I have 2 different vibrato settings. This one I use mainly because I wanted to be hip like Phil Wickham's guitars. And so that cops that sound very well. This other one, it's called Warped Vinyl, oddly enough. I would love to get my hands on an actual warped vinyl, but I like what this does to the sound. It makes it kind of chewy, kind of gives it some motion a little bit. Probably one of those sounds that not too many people are going to notice it's being used. But if anybody does, it's one of those things that I get excited if they said they noticed. So just because it's so subtle, you're going to need to hear the 2. So without, with. You really got to let a chord ring out in order to hear the difference. I'm also a big tremolo fan, so I like a little bit of a flutter effect, which is actually what this preset's called. So it's a little more subtle. It's a little more subtle compared to this next one that's called a Tumbleweed. That's just what the preset's called. What's great about the H9 is you can hold down this tap function here, and you can tap it in. So you can downside is in order to get out of tap, you got to press and hold it again. There you go. And then you can cycle through presets, which can get annoying, but I typically just set the tempo I need during rehearsal or something, and that way I get exactly what I need. I have it set to different subdivisions, which is cool. I use my phone, and I can edit things within the app. It hooks up via Bluetooth. That's all I have on that right now. You can have like 100 some odd presets, and you can have so many different sounds. You can use it for delay, you can use it for reverb, you can use it, they even have a compressor, they have a looper, they have some really funky sounding stuff too. You can, anything virtually that Eventide makes, you can throw on there. And I think it's great. I know there are people, and we're gonna make a segue to delay and reverb. I know there are people who like using them. They use two for delays and reverbs and the such. I've tried that, but I just don't prefer the setup of the H9. I've had Strymon products for a while. I got a Timeline within a couple weeks of them coming out several years ago, and this is my fourth Timeline. My fourth Timeline. I know what I like, apparently. And this is my second Big Sky. I feel like most people know exactly what these things do. But I'm gonna kind of show some of my settings, kind of my favorite and how I use them. Honestly, this mellow setting you see right here is one that they set up already. It's a just a regular digital delay. I use it sometimes. Sometimes you can't really tell it's even there. But it's a nice to add a little bit of space. Sometimes it makes me feel better. It's like a confidence boost for whatever reason. Putting guitar soaked in delay and reverb makes me feel confident. This is the second preset they have. I think I just tweaked it a little bit more. It's a dotted eighth sound. If you're watching these videos because you subscribe to our channel, then I'm sure you probably know what dotted eighth is. So I'm gonna tap in. Honestly, I don't think I use a dotted eighth sound anywhere near as much as what I used to. It's very rare that I use that. I'm more of a blues, gospel infused kind of guy. Doesn't mean I'm one of those guys. It just means I have hints of that in my body. All right, so this is the D bucket. It's like an analog sound. I have it kind of dialed into sound something close to Deluxe Memory Man. I have two of these, one here, and this one's called Deluxe Memory Man Wash. The only difference is the wash, the mix is a little higher, and the repeats are a little higher. So, here you go. I love the way that trails off. I use that. That's probably one of my predominant settings. For maybe a slower song, where the repeats won't get in the way as much, I'll use this wash. If you use it on a faster song and you're playing a lot quicker, you're gonna end up tripping over yourself, and I don't want my guitar parts to be muddy. I want people to know what I'm playing. So here's kind of like the same tempo. What's cool is I have it set up so if I switch between the two, I don't have to tap the tempo in. I have a global tap feature on. I prefer that. So it's very muddy. I don't use that for big chords and all. I typically just use it for guitar parts. This the L cap sound I have dialed in. I've had about 4 of those pedals from Strymon anyways. Right now I just don't have the space for it. I would totally add one on my board though. I prefer the L cap's real sound to my fake, you know, faux L cap sound. I really like the multi-head. I really like the reverb you can add to it. But this does a great job. And it's got this aged tape sound to it, so it's all warbly. I like that too. I like how it carries on when I turn it off. That way it won't get in the way, but it's still there. I have a little bit of reverse setting. It's good for like in Christ is Enough. That's pretty much the reason why I put it there, and part of This Is Amazing Grace. I really like that. I have a panned sound. I don't run stereo, but if I did, it'd be set up, ready to go. But this is like a quarter and a dotted eighth sound, which I have them running parallel, not in series, because I really like it to be distinct. I want the quarter to sound like a quarter and the dotted eighth to sound like that. You put them together, it starts kind of like this weird galloping sound, and it sounds great, but it ends up getting a little too messy for me. So here's how I run it. You can kind of hear that bant, da dant, 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 da dant, dant, and it's like the same rhythm all the way through. If you run them in series, it ends up starts tripping over each other, and like one of them repeats the other one, and then it starts getting crazy. I don't prefer that. Here's another cool sound. I'm gonna let you figure out what that's based off of the title. It's called Dance, but the ironic thing is there's probably somebody else who's thinking it sounds like another band song. That's the point. I really much like it. It's a digital sound with a lot of mod on it. Everything after this, I'm sure they all sound great, but that's about as much as I use. I like having presets. I like that I can dial in the BPM. I like that I can save it pretty quick. That's what I prefer in realms of delay. I've tried lots of different things. I've tried a DL4, I've tried a Nova delay, I've tried a DD20, I've tried the Super delay, I've tried El Capistans, I've tried 4 timelines, I've tried a time factor, I've tried 3 H9s. I just know exactly what I want. Which brings us though into the Big Sky. This is the second one I had. I was not a huge fan of the Blue Sky when I first tried one. I think at that point I felt like that was a lot of money for a reverb, but here I am with the Big Sky, a second one, no less. So I find that this pedal was very well done, and I use, out of the box, I use pretty much everything from them. I've tweaked a few things to get them a little more to my taste, to kind of back off some of the highs that are in the reverb trails, or to kind of add some more body or what have you. But I have taken it, let's see, I've taken it to bank 35 and found a few settings. This is a bloom setting. This next one is a cloud. This next one is a choral. And I use those a lot. But I have a shimmer verb, which I used to not be too big on, but I've tweaked this one enough that it does exactly what I like. If you haven't heard shimmer though, I mean, that's just reverb. No delay even. And so I got it tweaked for kind of swells because that's the only time I like to use shimmer. I've heard people use it and I wish I had the guts to use it like that. I don't know, that's just me. I have, it's called Slow Dance. So it actually sounds like a spring verb. I don't use that one too often. It's there if I need it. This one, it's called Brave. Tops that sound pretty dang well, and no delay. I've got to the point where I don't always use both. I very much like to use one or the other, basically because I find that even though it can make a sound trail a little bit longer, by adding delay, it can almost get it too muddy at times. And if I'm playing a lead part and I'm not just playing chords, sometimes I really need it to stick out, and it starts getting a little too hairy. And so sometimes it's just reverb, but I do use both naturally. By default, it just happens sometimes. So this is another stock sound. It's a room of sorts. It's called Boiler Room. I don't know what a boiler room sounds like, but I guess this is what it would sound like if you were to play. So it's a little calm sound, which I love, because it gives it a little space if I need that. And then this one's called Asylum. It's like a hall. It's a little bigger. So that's how I do that. You know, a good example of how I would do some clean tones is I call up my Deluxe memory and kind of sound, and I'll even go, there's this other preset called, it's called Breathe Out. When you look at it on the screen, all you can see is breath. So I like to say that it's the breath of God. I don't know, because it sounds so ethereal and so pretty that if he were to breathe out, he'd breathe out Strymon Big Sky reverberating sounds. I don't know. All right, so that is just a little bit of a rundown about how I like to use everything. And so as we piece out today, I'm gonna stack a few sounds together so you can kind of hear how I get crazy with it. And by crazy, I mean adding 4 pedals together at once. It's not really that crazy. I got a little bit of this analog setting I got on my Timeline. I'm using that warped vinyl and just adds a little bit of movement. Honestly, you probably can't tell if it's on or off. It feels good, so I'm using it. Some of the POG and this Breath of God kind of patch. Sounds really nice and ambient. Thanks for checking it out. We're gonna do more like this. If you guys like this kind of stuff, if you guys got more questions, just let us know in the comment section, and we'll see what we can do. Thanks.